The issue of the pork barrel scam has reached its major turning point. After the Ombudsman's filing of charges, Sandigan Bayan's raffle of cases, and its issuance of bold departure orders, a series of high-profile arrests of Senators Juan Ponce Enrile and Jingo Estrada and several others tagged in the multi-billion peso pork barrel scam is set to commence any moment now following Senator Bong Revilla's surrender. The Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation meanwhile expressed their readiness to effect arrest. Earlier, Senators Estrada and Revilla expressed interest for a possible house arrest, while Senator Enrile looks into a possible bail petition due to old age. These newly constructed detention cells at Camp Crame will welcome the alleged pork conspirators if House Bill 1360 or the proposed high-profile Detention Center Act filed by Ako Bicol party list will not be enacted to law. The bill seeks to address health and security concerns of high-profile detainees, as well as concerns about the supposed special treatment in correctional facilities in favor of the rich and influential prisoners. The proposed special detention center includes a dormitory, an administrative building, security fences, a hospital, a recreation hall, and visiting areas, among other facilities. But some groups and those who recently marched and protested during Independence Day said that all those involved in the pork barrel scam be arrested, prosecuted, and jailed in ordinary prisons. Welcome to Opposing Views, a hard, straightforward discussion of today's most pressing issues. With the earlier surrender of Senator Bong Revilla and the impending arrest of a busload of senators and representatives, both former and incumbent, as well as other public officials for the plunder cases and the multi-billion peso PDAF scam, the Ako Bicol party list proposes a bill creating a separate detention center for these VIPs. Let's examine and debate about this bill tonight. Our question: should the government build a separate detention center for high-profile detainees? Good evening, I'm Rodney Pomoceno, and this is Opposing Views. All right, joining us tonight in our discussion is Representative Rodel Batocabe of the Ako Bicol party list, co-author of the High-Profile Detention Center Act. Representative Rodel, good evening.
Good evening, Rod.
Good evening, yeah.
Good evening.
Can you give us a summary of your position, maybe in 30 seconds, your opinion on this question?
Yes, this bill seeks to provide the establishment of a high-profile crime detention center for prisoners who are still awaiting trial. In other words, who are still under trial or not yet convicted of a final judgment. These are prisoners who are accused of non-bailable offenses involving crimes which attracted national or public attention, publicity, and at the same time, their cases are imbued with public interest or public safety or security. So in other words, these are prisoners involved really in very publicized cases, which really attracted public attention, and it would be very hard for this type of prisoners to be mixed up with the ordinary prisoners in an ordinary detention cells like city jail, municipal jail, or provincial jail.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Rodel. And of course, on the opposing side is Attorney Chrissy Conti of the National Union of People's Lawyers. Good evening, Attorney Conti.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, can you give us your quick thoughts, your views on this debate question?
Quick thoughts, probably. This is a bill that legislates double standards in our society. As you've said, these involves detention prisoners, and they're all the same, whether they have plunder cases against them or illegal possession of firearms and explosive cases against them. They are innocent before proven guilty. So the fact that they are high profile, rich, famous, influential, powerful, that's the thing that you're trying to classify them with. But the point is, our laws prevent us from discriminating on invalid classification. So certainly, this is a bill that violates the equal protection law equal protection clause in our Constitution.
All right, Attorney Chrissy. Yeah, all right. So we'll start off now. We'll
Yes.
start a discussion right now.
Okay.
I'll start off first because obviously I think the one word that seems to be sticking out here is high profile. No? So let's start off first. I'll just call you Rodel. No?
Yes.
How do you define high profile prisoners and high profile cases? That's a little bit subjective. No?
Okay, let me just first emphasize. When you talk about high-profile prisoners, it doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about rich and
Rich and
influential people.
Okay.
It might also involve, people who are accused of security, national security cases. Let's say, for example, like the Reds or the Abu Sayyaf, or even the Ampatuans. So these are all people who are involved in a very high-profile cases, which have received a wide publicity, and as a result of that, their lives may be in danger or their security is threatened. So what should they do? They have to apply in the court. They have to apply. Now, you see, you cannot just detain that in the city jail or in the municipal jail or in the provincial jail because of the cases or the interest generated by our cases. So we have to be detained in this kind of facility. As of now, you see, we don't have any kind of facility that we can accommodate this kind of prisoners.
So you're saying, just to follow up with what you said, they have to apply for it. I mean, in other words, because it's very hard to determine what you mentioned, high profile. Diba? Again, you clarified it as not meaning rich and famous and popular
Yes,
or whatever,
yes,
but
that's right.
maybe it's hogging the headlines.
Yes.
It's there, and it may or may not
risk.
involve rich people or
Yes,
influential
that's right.
people.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the termination of that is still through a judge, or
Judge, the bill provides for the standards in order for the judge to base the decision whether or not to detain this kind of prisoner in this kind of detention cell or in an ordinary cell. And at the same time, Rod, with due respect to Chrissy, let me just clarify about this equal protection clause. The equal protection clause merely requires that similarly situated individuals should be treated
Same way,
equally with respect to the conferment of rights and imposition of obligation. In other words, if you are similarly situated, you should be treated equally. But here, there's an exception in equal
because of the
protection.
publicity involved?
Yes, there's a substantial distinction. These kind of prisoners, which have generated a lot of publicity, a lot of interest from our people, are not the same as the ordinary prisoners. So because of the publicity involved, there's a reason why their security is at risk.
All right. Chrissy, your thoughts on that?
I have many problems with that position. First, with publicity as one of the stratification. Publicity is very subjective. I mean, you can manipulate media in some ways and focus on small cases, but gloss over the big cases or the more important cases, and vice versa. So,
But do you agree, though,
publicity-
that the situation is different? Let's
No,
say
not-
between
but not pub-
one who's in the headlines all the time and
Yeah, but not as to publicity-wise, but as to perhaps security. But we already have measures again for that. In fact, PNP Krame is a temporary detention center. It's not supposed to be a detention center. That's the headquarters of the PNP. It's I think, a high security, more secure than other detention centers. So that's already one of our special detention centers.
And you already have a problem with that?
Well,
Currently?
not really.
Not really. Okay.
Not really,
All right.
because if the point is security, then it's a matter for the executive, the PNP, to determine. Now, another point. I'm sorry, but I don't see here in your bill something, the point where it's supposed to be the judge that will determine which cases are high profile. And also that would be infringing upon the powers of the judiciary. We have a separation of powers.
Let me just tell you,
All right.
it is
Okay.
the judiciary which interprets the law. Of
Yes.
course, there's a bill. Of course, it will be applied before the court. If you want to be transferred to a jail other than a city jail or a municipal jail, then you should apply to the court. That is
Yeah.
what's happening right now. Now, if you will look at the history, from the time of the EDSA revolution up to the present, from the coup plotters to former presidents, former senators, military officials,
Presidents
not
also.
one of them were detained in an ordinary facility. Not even, let's say, the Ampatuans, not even the Chamsons, the Reds, the head of the Communist Party, were detained in an ordinary facility. And instead, they were detained in a special detention facility. Now, who's talking about double treatment? It's, double
there's
standard.
there's double treatment right there.
Yes. So every time there's this kind of type of prisoner, the lawyers will apply to the court. Of course, they will tell, okay, you see, my client cannot be detained in this in the city jail because his security or is threatened or for health consideration. So, yeah. So what happened now? What happened now? Look at reality. They are detained in special detention facilities, rest houses, bungalows, or even hospitals. So every time, you find a high-profile personality accused of a high-profile crime, the first day he or she is healthy, the next day she's in a wheelchair.
Chrissy, he's got a point there. I mean, a lot of presidents were detained in their vacation homes, hospitals, as we know. So,
But the difference there is that these are powerful, influential people. My client, Andrea Rosal, where is she? Taguig City Jail, accused of being a top rebel official. In Taguig City Jail, in a cell which is supposed to hold 10 people, now holds 30. She was hospitalized, yes, 16 days. She gave birth, her baby died. She suffered from, intimate wounds. And now we have Janet Napoles, who had her myoma taken out, ovarian cancer, etc., stayed in a hospital for 2 months.
right. All right.
Precisely.
We need to pause at this point. We need to take a break. This is a very interesting topic, to say the least. We'll be right back after a short break. Meanwhile, you can react online via Facebook at facebook.com/SolarOpposingViews or tweet your comments at opposing_views. Use the hashtag OVVIPJail. Stay tuned. You're watching Opposing Views. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching Opposing Views on the Solar News Channel. We have with us Representative Rodel Batucabe of the Ako Bicol party list and Attorney Chrissy Conti of the National Union of People's Lawyers. Our debate question for tonight: should the government build a separate detention center for high-profile detainees? All right, I'll throw this question to you, to Chrissy. No? Let's talk about the proposed facilities, because based on the bill, or at least what we've seen so far, no, it includes a hospital, recreation center, lecture center, visiting area, workshop facilities. Now, do we usually have these in regular prisons, or in your mind, do you think these are special accommodations and therefore leads to special treatment for these detainees?
If ever these are supposed to be in the regular facilities, these aren't in reality. So I'm not sure if these are supposed to be in our regular jails, but definitely when you look at our jails, definitely not. So we think
So you think it's a form of special treatment for sure?
Yes, accommodations. For example, you have a training or lecture center, which you can find in other jails. Kasi ang nangyayari lang sa kanila, meron silang common area, and then that's where they mix in.
Right.
Pleasure and business.
Right. Okay, Rep?
Okay. Let me just emphasize, there's no double standard there. It is just an ordinary prison facility. We just separate this kind of prisoners from the ordinary prisoners because by reason, by history, by security, humanitarian, and health considerations. You see, when we talk about hospital, other, let's say, they believe in prison as its own infirmary. So what I'm just saying is, we might just as well build an infirmary rather than, a high-profile detention prisoner will go to a hospital and be subjected to house arrest. Yan po, mas grabe yun. That is double standard. So how much are we spending here? What I'm saying here is if we build a separate detention facility, we will be saving a lot of money, taxpayers' money. You know why? Because as of now, we have separate detention facilities for this kind of prisoners. We don't detain them at the provincial or the city jails. We detain them at special detention centers. As I've said, houses, rest houses, hospitals. So,
in other words, there's more discretion for the judge, and then it's up to the judge to point out which facility will be appropriate, a private hospital or a vacation home and all that. So I guess what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right, that's
in
right.
this case, no choice na yung judge. There's a special detention facility for these type of cases to
Yes,
address.
and because every time, there's this kind of prisoner, we will be preparing a detention cell. We will be in a quandary where to put him or her in
Because of the special nature of the case.
Special nature
Right.
of the case. So it would be better kung talagang we build a detention facility like a prison. It's not even different from an ordinary prison with a budget, a meal budget of the same ordinary
same budget,
prisoners.
okay.
So there's no distinction. Preso lang. Ang kaiban lang, this is separate.
Okay.
So,
All
Meal
right,
budget.
Chrissy? Yeah?
Yeah, meal budget of like 50 pesos
That's
a day.
right.
Yes.
That's right.
But let me clarify, yung sinasabi kanina na ang judge mapipilitan na i-assign or ipapuntahin sa isang bahay o special detention center, that's a flaw in our legal and justice system that the legislative, I don't think so, that the legislative cannot do away with. Kasi this is an executive problem. The thing is, our jails are rotting, our jails are old, our jails are subpar, subhuman even yung conditions nila sa loob. So what we have to do is up the standards for all the jails. Why not?
Yeah, we have
Diba?
no problem with that.
Instead of creating this high-profile center and making it so grandiose,
Because
And for-
I guess the question is, it provides a lot of question marks, especially
Yeah,
with the way you
and-
call it.
Yeah,
Who are these people?
Let me
Why
just be clear about this. This bill is still in its inchoate stage. It still will be subjected to committee hearings, consultation with stakeholders. So, but the point there is, we must build a separate detention facility to save on taxes. How much are we spending, let's say, for example, for GMA stay at the Veterans Hospital? How much are we spending for Napoles in Santa Rosa? So you see, we will be saving a lot of money
So,
if we build a facility.
So correct me if I'm wrong, apart from the savings you're providing, of course that's a very legitimate point, no? But is it mainly for the health or the security reasons why you're proposing this bill?
More on the security
More on the
reason.
security.
Just imagine, an incumbent senator, if you will detain him in a city jail. I doubt if he will survive one day. And a former president, let's say Erap, Asyong Salonga, detain him in Manila City Jail. What will happen to
Although
him?
there are a lot of high-profile cases there where they sort of like become the leader or bosses in the
Yes,
city
but
jail.
that is the city jail, the National Bilibid Prison. So what this bill is saying, if you are still undergoing trial, you are not yet convicted of a final judgment, you stay here in this kind of cell. But once you're convicted by final judgment, then you go to the National
Chrissy,
Penitentiary.
do you agree that security concerns will justify this? Because you
For
will
prisoners.
concede though that,
Yeah,
that because
that
of
there
the,
are
it's a special case. I mean, they're obviously Senator Bong Revilla is not your usual prisoner, right?
but our law is supposed to work in a fair and even manner. So if you're someone who committed a crime, you're supposed to go to jail, to a regular jail. That's what the law says. Now, there are certain specificities, nuances regarding security, which our executive has tried to address with the establishment of special detention centers, like, for example, PNP Krame and many other detention centers. But the thing is, why set up another jail as proposed by the legislative, not by the executive? That's another question, because this is supposed to be
An executive
act. So, why have this kind of detention center that focuses solely on security, but has a rider regarding high-profile, detainees
determining.
who, by reason of the relative position of the parties in society, rich and famous, another imbued with public interest. You're not really sure. So there are riders in this bill which does not, contradicts the point that this is just supposed to be a security
measure,
concern.
yeah.
First of all,
Rep?
yes. See, that is not a mere executive function. You see, we have to institutionalize this kind of penal institution, and it needs appropriation from Congress. Second, You see, this will help. You were mentioning about Andrea Rosal. She was confined in a city jail. Of course, Andrea Rosal, the daughter of the spokesperson of the Communist Party. She's a high-profile personality. And of course, you can apply in court. Once this bill is enacted into law, you can apply Andrea Rosal to be detained in that detention facility. So what I'm saying here is this. We will be saving a lot of money. You know, every time we have a detention prisoner like this one, like high-profile prisoners, what do the executive do? They renovate a building. They look for some facility in order to accommodate these people.
So might as well have it anyway.
That's right.
So again, just taking off, Chrissy, like for example, let's have a concrete example, like Janet Lim Napoles. And she had to be detained all the way there, no?
In
Laguna. And we all know the price tag for that. Again, I'm not citing anything, but I think the point here, I'm just looking at it from as a taxpayer, and we knew the price tag of every transfer that she had, and we knew the price tag of her being hospitalized in Hospital ng Makati and all that, no? So these are, I guess, initially I have to say that I seem to have a problem with the high profile, I guess, definition of these detention centers. But with the point now being driven by Representative Rodel, these transfers are very expensive because it's always ad hoc. You always have to look for the a special facility. If we had special facilities, that would definitely be, I would say, there would be savings there. Your thoughts on that?
But why not transfer Janet Napoles to Krame? Krame is the headquarters of the PNP. Couldn't be any safer than that.
But remember, Janet Lim Napoles is not the last. We might have not only busloads, truckloads of other accused. You know, this will also help in our campaign for transparency and accountability in the government. See?
Yeah.
So we will
and the PNP detention centers.
The PNP detention, the NBI detention centers are not enough to accommodate this kind of prisoners. So where will we put them? Okay, let us base it on evidence.
We probably have more prisoners than senators in Congress.
Precisely. Baka we'll have a quorum. But then, levity aside, see, let us look at history. Let us look at evidence base. So, not one, wala ni isa among these people, this kind of type of prisoners were detained at the city jail or provincial jails. They were all detained at the special detention centers. So,
might as well legislate it anyway.
Might just as well legislate it, provide for a detention facility, and to your credit, you know, I have to consider, we really have to. This should be also at par with other ordinary prison.
So, all right. Sorry to cut you off. We need to take a short break. More on the issue of separate detention cells for VIP detainees when we come back. Please stay with us. This is Opposing Views. Welcome back. You're still watching Opposing Views on the Solar News Channel. I'm Rod Nepomuceno. And still with us, Representative Rodel Batocabe of the Ako Bicol Party List, co-author of the High Profile Detention Center Act, and Attorney Chrissy Conti of the National Union of People's Lawyers. And our question for tonight, should the government build a separate detention center for high-profile detainees? Now, Congressman, one of the points raised by Attorney Chrissy was recognizing the prisoner's rights to proper correction, rehabilitation, and reformation. And she made a point that rather than putting up these special detention cells, which of course it's another expense, why don't we just strengthen and fix our existing jails so that it'll be appropriate naman for our high-profile cases?
Actually, in the last Congress, we already passed a bill, law, strengthening the Bureau of Correction and the BJMP, the Bureau of Jail and Management and Penology, because we really want to improve our prison system, at the same time, the condition of our prison cells. So it's only a matter of time, as Attorney Chris had said, for the executive to implement what the legislature.
Do you think we should prioritize that rather than have a special detention
No, we
center?
can do it at the same same time,
the same time?
because this is also needed. You see, we have a lot of these kind of prisoners, and yet they are not detained at detention cells, but at special detention cells. So for how long shall we pretend that these people are being detained when in fact they're not being detained? In fact, they're being at the hospital, they're at the rest house, and we are spending a lot of money in terms of security, in securing and for their upkeep. Just imagine, every time the police will go to court, how many security details will be needed just to escort her. Now, if she is in a facility, for those kind of prisoners, then there is only one detail. Yung mga tao lang doon, yung mga prison guards lang doon. And at the same time, you see, we will now have a problem. As it is, the pork barrels come, we will be having a lot of accused. So where shall we detain them? Are we willing to detain them at the Manila City Jail or the Quezon City Jail?
Yeah.
So, but again, as I've said, history has shown that not one of high-profile detainees were detained in a regular jail.
All right, Chrissy. Now, your point, the point of Rep here, is that it hasn't been followed anyway. You were saying that it's a flaw in the legal system.
Yeah.
But since we don't know how to correct that legal system, will you subscribe to his view that maybe we can do it together? Meaning uplifting the current status of the jails, the current jails, and at the same time still have that special detention facility.
Still sorry.
Still no?
No about the
Still
special
no, huh?
detention.
Okay.
Yeah. But regarding Janet Napoles, the transfer accommodations, etc. You know what they did for the Abu Sayyaf accused? Kasi sa Abu Sayyaf, ilang daan yan eh. Currently, there are 200 in, more or less, in Bikutan. What they did was put up a court inside Bikutan, Camp Bagundiwa. And that's where they go for their hearings.
Right.
So, transport costs, minimal. Sa loob siya mismo ng jail, halos isang kanto lang sa Sika, di pwede silang doon mag-hearing. Why not do it for them?
That's a very good suggestion, precisely. In this high-profile detention facility, perhaps the Sandigan Bayan can also hold hearings in this...
you might add a provision
that's
there.
Right, that's right. And at the same time, if I were to subscribe to Attorney Chris's view, there are only two alternatives. First, we have to file a bill, law, legislating that judges should be prohibited to detain prisoners of whatever kind in cells other than the city jail or the provincial jails. So yun ang gagawin natin. Hindi pwede na silang ilagay sa rest house, hindi pwede silang hospital arrest, kundi dun sa city jail. Or we legislate this kind of bill na we are proposing, wherein we have a separate detention facility. Because that's the only way. In order to avoid double standard, in order to make these people feel that they are also detained, and also to save the government a lot of expenses, the taxpayer, and a lot of headaches.
So in a way, what you're saying is a lot of people think that this is double standard. You're actually trying to remove the double standard.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Chrissy, the bill says that this is a way of professionalizing jail management and penology to segregate them for security and humanitarian reasons. I mean, that's according to the bill. You think this will work?
No.
Do you think this will professionalize it, and because you can now have actual segregation and
because
based on the
actually it
situation.
will be less professional because you're dealing with the rich and the famous, and then you have another set of ethics or rules with regard to the ordinary prisoners. That's how we see it. By setting up a special detention center, there's a separate set of rules, separate facilities, separate IRR probably regulations for them, and then a different one for the ordinary accused. So that's kind of hard to
What did you mean by
fathom,
that in the bill? You wanted to professionalize jail management penology. How did you envision this bill to enhance the professionalism in jail management?
Actually, that's the term of another co-author of the bill, a former general, a police general, Sami Pagdilaw, Representative Sami Pagdilaw.
Okay.
He's saying the reality is there's always a stratification inside our jails. You cannot really mix everybody. So in
society,
yes,
you're saying.
That's right. What he is saying, this kind of type of prisoners, these are a class of their own. They have their own class. They are different from other prisoners. But at the same time, you are putting them in a detention facility, in a penal institution, wherein there is a penal officers, which include the jail guards. And there's an atmosphere of restraint. There's an atmosphere of a prison environment. So itong sinasabi natin, there is no double standard because that is a penal facility. So that is one way of professionalizing jail management because, of course, everything will be centralized now. The security, the rules and regulation regarding jail management. Let's say, for example, what to wear during trial. So if the city jail, the inmates at the city jail wear yellow, perhaps they can also wear yellow. And then the food, then also what the food being served at the city jail should also be served there.
But let me throw this question. I mean, let's say I was accused and I was given a choice. All right, you're going to stay with someone who stole from the pork barrel, or you're going to be staying with someone with a rapist or a killer and all that. I would definitely I'd probably stick around with the one who stole from the pork barrel, right? And,
okay.
You know what I mean? And then I could then try to perhaps bribe the judge. Oh, you have to judge. You have to do this for me. Please send me. I'll apply for the special detention center.
But you have the burden to prove, you qualify under this law, under the law that you are a high-profile detainee involved in a high-profile case wherein your security is not only a threat, but its danger to your security is imminent. So you really have to prove that to the judge. You have to show that to the judge before you can be detained. Because usually, in the ordinary course of things, if you committed a crime, if you're accused of a crime rather, an ordinary crime, you'll be at the city jail.
Do you think this is a useful use of their this is useful way for the judges to spend their time in determining whether you should be in a special detention center or not, or
Still no. Yeah, it's still an issue for the judges because you're putting them in a position where they will separate or classify people based on what? On high-profile publicity, security risk, when there should be no difference. Remember again, there's a difference between detainees and prisoners. Prisoners are those who have been convicted already. When you're detained, you haven't been found guilty.
Yeah.
Everybody's the same. Whether you're accused of robbing your amo, o di ba, yung mga yaya na kumupit ng 10 piso, 100 pesos dun sa amo nila, versus someone na kumupit sa gobyerno, you're still both innocent until proven guilty. Okay. Now, the thing is, why do we need to separate them and say that, oh, this should be treated differently from the other? So, doon nagkakaiba eh.
That's where you're having a problem.
Kasi there should really be no difference between all of those detainees.
Okay. Now, Chrissy, the reality is, and this has been used so many times. In fact, if you go to social media, it's become a joke. When some high-profile person gets accused, you have a meme where they're in a wheelchair or something, hospital arrest. Do you think this suggestion by Representative Rodel would prevent that? Because,
no.
No?
No.
You think they'll still prefer being in St.
GMA
Luke's?
would say, oh, okay, I will stop pretending that I have a sickness, that I'm ill, and then, oh, it's okay because the accommodations are adequate for me. No, I don't think so.
They'll still pitch for going to St. Luke's
they'll still find a way to, in a way, manipulate the legal system.
That is no longer an option, Rod. That is no longer an option. If you are accused now, if you have this high-profile detention facility, that is no longer an option for you to go to a hospital. You are supposed to be there. That's the only option you have. You cannot go to a rest house anymore.
Okay.
You cannot go
that's
anywhere.
That's the only decision.
That's the only way. So what's happening right now? Everybody is applying to the judge. They're asking, they're moving that they be transferred to this kind of detention facility. That's the reality. Now, with this kind of law, they no longer have to do that because there's only one way to go.
And it's still a detention area. All right. Now, I need to ask you, Attorney Chrissy and Representative Rodel, we have a comment on Twitter. Pat Stollinger, I hope I got your name correctly, on Twitter said, build cells for high-profile cases, but design and size should be no different from city jail cells. Your thoughts?
Yes.
That's how you want it.
There's no problem about that. It must be with iron bars. And then the same facility, but at the same time, of course, they cannot be joined with other prisoners because, again, security reasons. So they are alone in that cell. So we can go on. We can
Yeah.
improve the bill as we consult with other stakeholders.
Chrissy, are you okay with that?
If from the point that he wants a new facility with the same specifications as a regular
Yeah,
city
it's a-
jail cell,
yeah.
then that would be fine. It's the same as creating another.
It's like creating a new
yeah,
jail, but
with
it's
the
just
same,
separate. Yeah.
with the same,
But
not with these specifications.
No billiard
ah.
room, no
billiard
recreations,
room. Yeah.
Because, like, for example, some of the senators being accused now, well, they're asking for cable TV.
Yeah,
all
and
that
also
all,
the size. They have to themselves, no? Individually, 32 square meters.
Mm-hmm.
Regular facilities, I think they only have 3 by 3, so 9 square meters for every detainee. And now they can bill it, at least two in every jail cell. You know what? If Senator Bong Revilla is so lonely, maybe he can join Benito Tiamson. Our client, also in Krame, wala siyang roommate.
All right. All right. We need to pause right now. We need to take a short break. Don't go away. When we come back, the result of our online poll on the issue and the final words of our guests. Please stay with us. You're watching Opposing Views. Welcome back. This is Opposing Views. I'm Rod Nepomuceno, and our guests for tonight, Representative Rodel Batocabe of the Ako Bicol party list and Attorney Chrissy Conti of the National Union of People's Lawyers. And we asked tonight, should the government build a separate detention center for high-profile detainees? Now, quick question, Representative Rodel. No? Who will fund and maintain this under your bill? Will it be the Bureau of Corrections? Will they have sufficient budget for this? Or
We will appropriate,
separate?
Congress should appropriate the necessary amount to fund the upkeep of this facility. So thereafter, every year it will be included in the budget of the Department of Justice through the Bureau of Corrections. So
Since it's additional appropriation, so where's the savings there?
there's no savings.
No, you were mentioning earlier that
The savings is, in the spending of the government, in the upkeep of so many detainees in different areas of the country. Not only in special detention facilities, in hospitals, in rest houses, and all in any other places. So we will save a lot in terms of the security. How many security are you going to enforce in this kind of in separate places? It would save a lot. It would save the government a lot if these detainees are in one place.
all right. Now, okay, since Representative Rodel already mentioned, Chrissy, that he's thinking that it's going to be the same, almost the same, I guess, dimensions, the same look as the current jails, detention centers. Do you think that's enough for you to say, all right, or you still have a problem with the fact that they're being segregated?
Yeah, still with the fact that they're being segregated. So, actually, if we build a new jail, then put the high-profile detainees in together with the regular.
Mix them in.
Yeah, mix them
so
in.
you feel that you really feel that they should be mixed in. I mean, there should be no.
Unless there are
determination
security.
of
See,
special. Sorry?
there's a
Unless there are
security
concerns of security
consideration.
All right.
considerations,
So which goes back to what he was saying, no?
Yeah.
Security.
which puts them, as a suggestion, let the PNP take care of them or the NBI.
But in this case, though, there'll be busloads now. I mean, I think we're anticipating that there's going to be a lot of
Yes.
indictments, right? In this situation, you can't put them all. I would imagine the PNP cannot handle all of them, right?
Yeah.
So, will you concede to the fact that we need additional
Well,
jail
we need
facilities?
additional jail facilities, but not only for these high-profile detainees.
Because as it is, Congressman, I mean, there's overpopulation already in our
Yes,
jails.
our
systems,
jails
right?
are
I think
already
by
congested.
400%. I
Yes,
think,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. But you see, when you talk about high-profile detainees, it does not necessarily mean that they're rich and influential. They might also be accused of other cases, let's say public security cases, like the Tiamsons, wherein there are security risks. So they can also be detained there in the high-profile detention center. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're influential or you are rich, so you can be detained there. So it also involves other people, wherein the primary consideration actually is security. You know, there's an imminent threat to your life when you are mixed with the ordinary detainees.
Repredel, quick question. Do you think that this bill should be prioritized, and can it really protect national interest and national security, public interest and national security?
You know, I think it should be prioritized. You know why? Because the priority of the Pinoy administration, transparency, accountability, matuwid na daan. Of course, every time when we talk about this kind of jail, it symbolizes what graft and corruption, the prison for grafters, for what is crooked in the government. So in other words, actually, magiging kwanto usapan. Gusto makulong ka dyan sa high-profile detention facility. So this will be an institution. This will be an icon against graft and corruption. This will be an icon for transparency and accountability. And this will also be an icon for, human rights, for other detainees, for political detainees. So this is a facility wherein a detainee, which is not an ordinary detainee, will be there. Magiging at home siya doon. At hindi siya, it will also enhance in the administration of justice. Why? Because we will bring them to justice safely. So without happening, because if you put them in an ordinary jail, baka mamatay na.
Oh, they get killed.
So hindi naman di-decision ng kaso. At least they're safe, so we will know the truth. So we will know, they will also be able to seek justice until their cases are decided.
Do you agree, Chrissy, that this might serve the public interest and national security if because if we put them all in one jail, and God knows who are inside, no?
Yeah.
Do you think that the public interest will be served?
Well, the problem is it's not simply the personality that we're talking about, diba? As you've raised also that it also depends on the types of cases that they're charged with. Now the problem with that is, how do you really know which ones are? You can't really weigh between these cases presented before you, like political cases, political crimes, which sometimes are often common crimes. They are being charged with trumped-up cases. For example, the Tiamsons, their charge is murder, frustrated murder, kidnapping, and so forth. That's considered an ordinary crime, really, diba? So you can't really say na these ones should be the ones here, these ones should be the ones here. Now,
so that's a problem you're having.
Yeah, and the point that we're creating these special accommodations for the pork barrel scam is, nakakatakot na, no? The magnitude of the pork barrel scam really is so big that it affects a lot of our lives. But, to bend over backwards for these people, that's a little bit different na. When you said that, so that they would feel at home, I really reacted, because you shouldn't be at home.
You shouldn't
feel at home when you're in
no
a
cable
detention
TV and no
center.
aircon.
Yeah.
Let me clarify the term feel at home.
Okay.
What I'm just saying na feel nilang preso sila, nakakulong sila. They're prisoners.
You have to be
So I was
careful
just
with your words.
joking. I was just joking. You see, what
Feel
is,
at home meaning in prison.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're in prison.
Okay.
See, let me emphasize. Now, this detention facility is not built solely for these pork barrel scammers.
Yeah,
There are those
But-
people accused for pork barrel. This
guess
this will be built for all kinds of people involved in high-profile cases, wherein, again, I will emphasize.
Is there a timing aspect here? Because people are questioning, really. I mean, those who kind of commented in my post were questioning the timing of all of this.
And the fact that you always raise the point about
The record will
pork
show
barrel
that we
accused.
filed this in the last Congress, 15th Congress pa, and it was not passed. And then we refiled it again last year, immediately after the 16th Congress open session. Last July 2013 pa, even before this pork barrel scam. So, in other words, we are already anticipating this kind of prisoners. So, because of GMA, si GMA nasa veterans, ERAP, Jinggoy before, Trillanes,
Di naman talaga jail.
Mangkaw, Enrile, Kabawatuan, all the others, never.
Now, okay, taking off from that point, now, Chrissy, recently, Justice Secretary Laila de Lima ordered investigation because in the Bureau of Corrections, there were some incidents where people like Ricardo Camata, alias Chacha, of the Sige Sige Sputnik gang, no? she just learned that he got confined in the Metropolitan Hospital in Manila, and allegedly some women came in. And he got visits from some starlets. Then you have Herbert Colanco, alias Ampang, who was also brought to the Asian Hospital and Medical Center in Alabang, a very high-profile hospital for sure. And so these things are happening.
Yeah.
With the regular prisons, right, detention centers, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Representative Rodel, this is one of the things you're trying to avoid.
That's right.
This, no. So what are your thoughts on that? Because it's currently happening in the current. Because let's face it, an ordinary prisoner, while we might say they're equal, but there are some prisoners who have more influence and could probably influence the guards and those who are managing the detention center. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so precisely, as you said, there are VIP prisoners by virtue of them being rich, probably influential, connected, etc.
Yeah.
Then why do we need to legislate and codify the fact that there are rich, influential, and powerful detainees, and then bend over backwards and then, put up these detention facilities? What we need to do is correct what happened. Yes, correct the system. And make sure that this doesn't happen again. Now, what we're doing with this is sort of like trying to say na, anyway, nangyayari na naman. O sige, hayaan na natin. O sige, gawa tayo ng paraan para hayaan silang dito na lang ganito. O okay. Kumbaga, ang sinasabi niyo po ay, wag silang bigyan ng excuse. When in fact, you're creating the very excuse for them to appeal na, ang sakit ng likod ko. Pupunta ako sa ganito. Kung nangangati yung ganito ko, pupunta ako sa ganito. So
let
this
me
is...
just butt in. Okay. Don't you think that because of this high-profile detention center, this will always be under scrutiny, under the scrutinizing eyes of the public? So every time you have this detention cell, nandiyan ang media, the people will look at you. Is this how this cell compared to the other cells? So in other words, with this detention facility, this will be very strict. Will be very strict. Unlike, let's say, for example, the ordinary prison, wherein you will just know that there are VIP treatment if somebody complain. See, because these are ordinary prisons. So here you are in a very high-profile detention facility. All eyes are looking at you. So it will be very hard, let's say, for example, for some crooked jail guard to give VIP treatment, let's say, to Bong Revilla or to Senator Jingo Estrada, because there's the media. Sinasabi nila, ganito lang ang kan, ganito ang binibigay. So this is actually helping, in maintaining the standards, preventing double standards.
Sorry, to butt in. Yeah. There's that thing again. You said you will be more strict. The media will be more focused on these kinds of cells. When in fact they should, we should be strict in the implementation of the regulations in all jails. What I was saying before is that I'm amenable to some facilities having more security measures, stricter security measures. But as to the fact of regulations, implementation of rules, implementation of the specific rules and laws, dapat pare-pareho lang yan.
Let me ask you. Okay, you be the legislator now. What strict security measures are you referring to? Give me one proposal.
Well, at this point in time, I cannot say that.
Yeah, let's say we want to be strict at the security. So let's say a prisoner like Bong Revilla will be protected at the city jail.
Sir, what are the security
Do you
measures?
think we need to have security for Bong Revilla so he won't be touched by the other inmates there? So the point there is, ang sinasabi ko, we cannot really mix these people. Hindi talaga. There's a substantial distinction. Right. You have to accept that not everything is created equal.
Sir, dahil ba gwapo siya? At marirape sa regular jail? Yun ba yung punto nun?
Sexy, no?
Hindi natin malalaman.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off, Christina and Rep. Rodel. Believe it or not, it's 1 hour already. So, sayang, we should make this 2 hours. No? But thank you. Representative Rodel, thank you so much. Your final words on this debate question.
Yes, thank you, Rod. Thank you, Chrissy. It's a very enlightening evening for me. Same time, let me emphasize, we are not creating a double standard for our inmates here. What we are just creating is to first, to establish a prison facility for all classes of prisoners. So, second, to do away with the double standards. And third, to save the taxpayers' money. As of now, we are detaining a lot of detention prisoners in different special detention centers. The government is spending a lot of money in securing, let's say, Napoles, in keeping President GMA at the Veterans Hospital, and we will be spending a lot more taxpayers' money, considering that we will have a lot of indictments consisting of a lot of government officials, not only government officials, but also high-profile personalities, not only in the government, perhaps in other sectors, including in the insurgency movement. So we really need a separate detention facility for these individuals, because whether we like it or not, the reality is everybody's not created equal, and there's really a security threat, and whether we like it or not, the history will tell us nobody has been detained in an ordinary detention cell. And they are being detained in rest houses, hospitals, but not in a detention cell. We might just as well build a detention facility.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Congressman Batucabe. And Attorney Chrissy, your final words?
Yeah, well, coming from my short experience so far, jail hopping from Bikutan to Krame, I've seen how cramped the quarters can be, how subhuman, how squalid, how different from home it could really be. Now, the thing is, if we're trying to distinguish between detainees when there is no valid classification, that would certainly hurt a lot of people. That would certainly touch a lot of cases. I mean, imagine someone who's been in jail for so long, living with 30 other inmates in one cell, and then here comes someone who is rich, powerful, handsome, influential, and they're given all the luxuries in life, all the luxuries similar to home, the dormitory, the recreation centers, the facilities. And then what would you feel? It is as if this, in the eyes of the law, you're not equal. And that's the problem. You're saying that we aren't born equal. But that's why we created the law, so that we could all be equal in the eyes of the law. One thing, one equalizing thing. But for the law itself, for the legal system to accommodate and to codify stratification and inequality, there's really something wrong with us.
Right. Thank you very much, Attorney Chrissy. Very well said. I would say that we should have a part 2 for this. Right? All right.
Wow.
All right. Thanks to our guests, Representative Rodel Batucabe of the Ako Bicol party list, and of course, Attorney Chrissy Conti of the National Union of People's Lawyers. Thank you so much for joining us. And now let's feel the pulse of our viewers through our online poll. Our question: should the government build a separate detention center for high-profile detainees? Those who answered yes, 40%. And those who answered no, 60%. And that's our opposing views for tonight. Tune in again next week for another bold and engaging discussion on today's most relevant issues. I'm Rod Nepomuceno. Good night. God bless. Happy weekend.